Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. On the 16th of June, the Treasurer said, and I quote, "The government has made it crystal clear that we have no interest in increasing taxes on superannuation either now or in the future." But on Friday, the Treasurer backflipped and argued that actually superannuation concessions are not well targeted, undermine confidence in the system and need to be changed. Is this another example where the Treasurer says one thing in public but organises for months other things in private?
The Treasurer has the call.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Well, I thank the member for his question, and I'll refer to some comments from the Premier of South Australia in a second. But if he was to be truthful about outlining my statements on these matters previously, he would know that the context of my comments related particularly to the retirement phase of the process, Mr Speaker. But there have been changes, and those changes have been supported by none other than the Premier of South Australia, who said we need a new style of leadership, one that respects people's intelligence, explains complex issues, sets out a course of action and argues the case for it. And what he was referring to, Mr Speaker, was this. What he was referring to is the choice that sits between the opposition and the government. What he's referring to is he said you can sit back and be paralysed when it comes to the issues confronting this country on tax, as those opposite seek to do, off on their smoko, Mr Speaker, when it comes to tax reform. The only thing they've come up with is a Siggy's tax, Mr Speaker. That's their approach. Their approach is to look at tax as just as a big bag of cash to chase their spending, or you can have the approach of the government that treats the Australian taxpayer and the Australian citizen with respect and understands that they are capable, unlike those opposite, to hold one idea in their head at a time and can look at the broad array of taxes and reforms that can leave them better off. And that's what this government is doing. We are pursuing tax changes, Mr Speaker, in the spirit of those announced and commended by the Premier of South Australia, the Labor Premier of South Australia, who does believe that we need to respect people's intelligence, that we do need to explain these complex issues, as we are doing. Those opposite, they just jump in the bed, pull the doona over their head, and they hope it'll all go away, Mr Speaker. But, Mr Speaker, scenario 3, if they want to talk about taxes, Mr Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, and particularly the Shadow Treasurer, knows all about scenario 3, which was the option he modelled to expand the GST base and increase the GST rate. But I notice, Mr Speaker, there are a lot of other plans. Maybe it's the plan B that the member for Grainless is working on, Mr Speaker. Maybe he's got a plan B. Maybe the member for Sydney's got a plan B, Mr Speaker. We know the Leader of the Opposition sticking with plan A.